Hello, and welcome to Tracy Momi Reads. This week, I am going to be talking about two topics actually. One of the questions I get a lot with regards to reading is, how do I find so much time to read? Because obviously I don't have anything going on in my life that all I do is read books, right? So I'm going to be talking about that, addressing that, giving some tips and information on how you too can find more time to read. But I first wanted to just talk about reading in general, why I read and why I love to read. And I'm excited that there seems to be such I don't even know if resurgence is the right word. I loathe to use the term trend, but it seemed for a while that casual reading, just reading for pleasure, was not something that was very popular. It wasn't something that a lot of people were doing. And I even heard people who said they had read so much during their college years that they never wanted to read again, because like you get to high school and I think around 10th grade or so you start having to read like a lot of classics and a lot of texts where you have to do essays and all that kind of stuff, and it continues on if you go on to college. So a lot of people either didn't have the time or they felt like, okay, I'm so sick of reading because I've had to do all this reading. But now, especially with Bookstagram and all the booktubes and just all the book club groups and things on Facebook, it has suddenly become a cool thing again to just read for pleasure. And I'm sure there were a lot of us still out there reading for pleasure, but now with the advent of social media, it's just a way for readers across the world to kind of unite, and we're showing up in bigger numbers and bringing over and converting people who haven't always been book lovers, bringing them into the fold. But for me, I have always been like an avid reader. I can remember like the Judy Blume books back in the day, and I remember the first book that I read by a Black author that kind of got me more interested in reading, and I'm sure it was totally inappropriate for me to be reading it at the time. It was The Color Purple by Alice Walker, and I think my uncle had a copy of the book, and I was just mesmerized, by the story. And that, I think the book came out in 1983, 1986, and I was either 13 or 16, depending on what year, because I'm not really sure. I'll have to put the correction after I edit the video. But I can remember after that just, wanting to read more stories. It was just so much going on in that story. And prior to that, all the books that I read, they were, like children's books, which were appropriate for me to be reading. But this book dealt with so much more. And it was at that point that I realized that, okay, there's a lot of different stories out here. And I just really became interested in reading as much as I could. And I'm going to give you the top 3 reasons why I read, starting with number 3. I read for self-improvement, right? And that has kind of been like my issue with audiobooks to some degree, because I feel like I have been able to, over the years, increase my vocabulary, and not just from the standpoint of learning big words, but actually knowing what the words mean and using them in conversation, But I feel like that I have accomplished that through reading, through a visual inspection of words that I'm like, what does that mean? And sometimes you can figure things out with context clues when you're reading, but then other times, back in the day, before the handy dandy Kindle was invented and had the dictionary, I would literally stop, put a bookmark, a pen, receipt, whatever in the book, and I would get a dictionary like, what is this word? What does this mean? say the word a couple of times, because it would have the phonetic breakdown, kind of let it roll around on my tongue, see what the meaning, to find out that there's more than one way to say a particular word, and without, I'm not one of these people, I don't like using big words for the sake of using big words, because to me, it makes you sound like more of an idiot than like a really smart person if you could, use a 3-letter word, but you choose to use like a 10-letter word in its place. But it's just helped me to improve my vocabulary. It's helped me as a writer to improve my writing. It's helped me communicate better, in a lot of situations where, especially back when I was working in a traditional work environment, a lot of times I was the youngest person. Sometimes I may have been the only female. A lot of times, the majority of the times, I was the only Black person. So it gave me enough confidence to learn things, to learn words, to understand the world around me, even when it may not have been a world that I was used to. So, and another part of self-improvement is when you read stories like memoirs, for example, and you maybe do come across someone who's from the same place or world or environment that you're from, and they share their story and maybe provide some guidance or some cheat codes for helping you overcome things in your life or to be able to accomplish some of your goals. That's another way that you can improve your own quality of life, improve your own mental capacity, improve your own physical capacity depending on the type of book that you're reading. So number 3 for me, definitely self-improvement. Number 2 is knowledge. And I know a lot of the, with the vocabulary and that kind of thing, that kind of goes hand in hand as well. Even though I was improving myself to some degree, I was also acquiring this knowledge, right? And then again, when you're reading, whether it's a resource book or a historical book, you start gaining all this knowledge again about the world around you, things that you may not have known, things that you more than likely were not taught in school. So it's knowledge that you gain, and ultimately you gain knowledge of self through learning how things work, how the world works, how there are different people, living different lives, because so many people don't even have the opportunity to leave their neighborhood or their city or even their state. And I feel like if you're not someone who reads, if you're just like consuming television, like, right, with the news and reality shows and things like that, there is so much fiction woven into those stories. And even with the news, I hate the term fake news, mainly because of the person that came up with it. But to some degree, what the news does is they tailor stories to, focus attention on certain things to get a reaction out of the people that are watching, right? So you don't always get the full story, I would say, a lot of times with the news. So that's why reading is important, because there's a lot of stuff buried in the pages of books if you just take the time to read them and learn more. So yeah, knowledge, I've learned so much, and not just even from like historical stuff. If you read self-help books that deal with religion or psychology or addiction or whatever, maybe if you're struggling in some area, the knowledge you gain about your behavior and maybe why you're reacting to someone a certain way or you're having a certain feeling about something, you can read books and get a lot of answers. So yeah, knowledge for me is number 2. The number 1 reason, however, that I read is for the escapism. Yes, I read self-help books, I read resource books, I read memoirs, I read biographies, but my absolute favorite genre to read is fiction. I think that the world, again, while it can be a very wonderful place, a very wondrous place, it can also be a very heavy and hard place. And sometimes you have got to unplug, the TV, turn off the phone, you know, get away from the negativity and just lose yourself in a really good story that makes you smile, you know, that is turning reality on its head, you know, making things that seem impossible possible. And it just, I don't know. I feel like with fiction books, a lot of times you stay in touch, not get in touch. You stay in touch with your inner child because, you know, like when you were little, everything seemed realistic or possible until, you know, you had an adult have to break the news to you that, you know, astronauts, they don't really fly. And no, you can't actually be, you know, Superman. But you know, when you read stories and you get invested in those characters just for a brief moment, you feel like that maybe you could. Maybe you could be Superman or Superwoman. And maybe astronauts do fly in the stories that you read. And there's nothing wrong with accepting that and believing that for the time that you're in those stories. Because, like I said, it's hard out here. I mean, we're living in some very perilous times now, and I just cannot imagine if I didn't have that to escape to. And that, again, you know, I know it's kind of mentioned the reading and writing when I'm talking about, you know, my favorite things or whatever, because for me, they go hand in hand, being a writer. And if I didn't have the writing or the reading to escape to every now and then, I just really wonder what my mental state would be like, because, you know, we all need that thing that we can go to that helps us get away for a while so that we can come back more refreshed, stronger to deal with, you know, the things that we have to deal with. So those are my top 3 reasons that I love to read. And because of those top 3 reasons, I make the time, because it is important to me to escape, to get that knowledge, to you know, improve myself in certain areas. And one of the biggest things that allows me all of this time to read is the fact that I'm not a TV watcher. I just am not a big TV watcher. Our TV, I mean, my kids watch TV. My husband watches TV. I'm not saying, oh, our whole family, nobody watches TV. But I really don't. I'm not just saying that just to be saying it. On Fridays, we have family movie night. Sometimes we'll get invested in a show like on Disney Plus. We've done all the Marvel shows, you know, like WandaVision, What If. Like before that, we were into The Flash on the CW. You know, and that's another way to kind of spend time together as a family. But it's a, you know, couple of hours, few hours, whatever, dedicated on a Friday to do that. And every now and then, you know, I might cut on something, and maybe on a Saturday, if I'm feeling lazy or whatever, early in the day, okay, I'm going to watch a couple of episodes of something. Or most of the time, I'm a multitasker. So if I'm folding clothes, okay, on a Saturday or something, I'll have a little 30-minute show. But as far as like sitting down, binging something for a whole day, or keeping up with a weekly television show, or even turning the TV on 7 days a week, I don't do it. I would prefer to read. And I'm not trying to shame anybody who prefers the opposite, but that's what you got to realize. Like, it's a compromise or a sacrifice, however you want to look at it. Do I want to watch TV or do I want to read? For me, I want to read. So that is one of the ways that I have so much, quote, time to read. And I'm being facetious the way that I'm talking is sarcastic, because it annoys me that people make it seem like because I read a lot, I don't have anything else going on. No, I just choose to allocate my time differently, you know. And another thing that I do is, like, if I have, I still have kids in school, right? My son's about to graduate, but my daughter, she's just in middle school, and I pick her up, right? So in the pickup line, when I'm parked there, I'll have a book, or maybe I'll bring my Kindle. So there's like 15, 20, 30 minutes or however long I'm waiting on her. That's time that I read. If I go to a doctor's office, you know, they are notorious for, you know, keeping you waiting in the waiting room, or even once you get back to their little area back there, sometimes they don't come right in to see you. I always have a book or something in my bag, you know, just something that I can grab to read. When I used to commute, I used to work downtown, and sometimes I would do what we call the park and ride. You would park your car and take one of the big buses down on the high occupancy vehicle, HOV lane, and I would, read a book then. And I could even see audiobooks. That's another way to get the story. Like I said, I don't really listen to audiobooks, but I do listen to scripted podcasts on my walks, which that's a whole nother thing. I think I did a video about it. But you make time for things that are important. And I think sometimes, especially some of the people that have said that to me, like, oh my God, I wish I had that kind of time. You have the time. You maybe feel embarrassed about the fact that you don't read for whatever reason, because there's nothing to feel embarrassed about if you don't read, or you don't like reading, or you don't want to read. But don't make excuses or try to shame other people and make it seem like they have nothing going on in their lives, because they do like to read. I don't say that when y'all are on the Facebook talking about all the reality shows. But anyway, so I make time for what I want to do, and one of the main things I love doing is reading. I would love to know your thoughts on this video, and if you have reasons other than the 3 that I named about why you like to read, or if you have some tips for our time challenge friends on how they can find more time to read, I would love to hear all of that in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching this video, and thank you for subscribing to my channel. I sincerely appreciate it. Make sure you tell a friend, okay? Thanks so much, guys. I'll be back next week with another book review. Have an awesome weekend. Bye.